Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So the Companions of the Hall pack gives us access to 5 different companions, from Drizzt to Wulfgar to Catti-brie, Bruenor, and then also we have Regis, who is limited to just the bundle. Every 4 weeks we shall be able to individually purchase each one of the companions. However, you can just buy the pack and it'll overall just be cheaper to get all of them that way. Of course, you can always get them on the auction house. Anyway, this video is going to be me testing each of them out to see what kind of damage these guys can output and whether they're going to be worth it to summon as a DPS companion to aid you in dealing more damage. Looking at Drizzt himself, we can see that he has the passive to increase our overall damage by 3% just continuously. That is awesome. Now, wouldn't it be great if he could actually do some decent damage? Well, unfortunately, all of these companions are not that great on single target damage, especially compared to the Cold Iron Warrior. First of all, I'd like to give a special thank you to all of these supporters who have joined my channel as a member. They really help to keep my channel going. So first of all, we went and tested them against an individual dummy to see and maximize their damage just on single target, whether or not you should be using them in a boss fight. So initially we have Bruenor, and his stats and abilities, we can see he will have his cleave, which does a 3-fold attack. Then he also has his shield charge. So with regards to the test, we've done over 10 minutes there, and we can see he nearly obtained 10,000 encounter DPS, which is not even 30% of the Cold Iron Warrior's maximum encounter DPS. So he's pretty abysmal, all things considered. You can see he's using his shield charge as his high damage hit, up to 137,000, and then his cleave as his at will. So next we have Catti-brie, and she's like an archer of sorts, and she'll have aimed shot along with rapid shot, both abilities just from the ranger. So we enter combat and she begins shooting the target, and you can see she'll initially do that aimed shot. All of her damage hits seem pretty small, and she's also pretty slow at hitting. That's the aimed shot and then some rapid shots. So with regards to her damage output, we can see again she's even worse than Bruenor, coming out with just over 9,000 encounter DPS. So next up we have Drizzt, and he's like a rogue. He has his quick strike along with his Tempest Slash, where he'll do devastating slashes, dicing up all enemies in front of him. This is potentially AoE. But we go and attack the dummy, and you can see he does his flurry of attacks there. He hits very rapidly, and let's kind of see what damage output he can get. So we have him right here, and he has his quick strike and his Tempest Slash. Altogether they seem to do nearly about the same damage. Quick strike just being a little bit higher there, and his encounter DPS is much higher than the previous two we've seen at nearly 15,000 encounter DPS. 14,500, and his maximum hits there are only about 10,000. You can see his quick strike and tempest strike seem to be pretty much the same there in overall damage per hit. It's just he hits quite a lot. But again, his encounter DPS is just really mediocre. I'll show you the Cold Iron Warrior in a second, and you can see what encounter DPS he outputs. So next up we have Regis. Now, he has the unique ability to be more AoE. We can see he has his Sly Flourish from the Rogue, along with the Whirlwind of Blades, which is also from the Rogue. And the Whirlwind of Blades is a large AoE attack which hurls daggers in that big area. You can see he'll do it there pretty much immediately, and it hits up there above 100,000. Otherwise, his Sly Flourish is pretty small hitting there. But let's see what damage he can deal. From what I got in a single target test, he deals less damage than Drizzt, but at least better than Catti-brie and also Bruenor at 12,600 encounter DPS. His Whirlwind of Blades doing the most damage. He does also seem to have a bleed, but you can see those hits are really tiny, with the maximum not even being 1,000 there. So all of these tests are of course done with 100% combat advantage, so this is pretty much the maximum damage I can obtain on my build, and I'm going to add all of these to my top 10 DPS list, or my damage companion single target list, where we can see all of the damage compared against all of the other companions, and none of these are going to get nowhere near the top 10. However, we've still yet to look at Wulfgar. So he has his Wicked Strike along with his Lunge. So when he goes and attacks, he's just going to use those attacks there, and that's his Lunge, and then the rest is just his hammer. So looking at his outputted damage, yeah, it's nowhere near as good as a Drizzt or Regis, and those are not even anywhere near the Cold Iron Warrior. So we can see his Wicked Strike is actually doing the most amount of damage, and his Lunge is just, I guess, very infrequent, and the hit is only up to 33,000 there. So yeah, his encounter DPS nearly 9.5 thousand. So to quickly compare, you can see the Cold Iron Warrior is just kicking ass. We have a look at his actual test results, and yeah, he's doing over 33,000 encounter DPS, which is by far above any of the damage that those companions of the Hall are doing. So all things considered, all of these companions are a little bit disappointing, at least in single target. I know they are really good at like passively buffing people. For example, Wulfgar will give action points of 3% summoned to the whole party or all allies near him. Not sure if that will affect the other people, let's say in a trial in the other party, but we shall have to test out. And we also have Drizzt having a good 3% buff to everybody. You have Regis with a 3% buff to recharge speed. You have Catti-brie, unfortunately only gives the movement speed, and Bruenor reduces incoming damage. So they are all potentially really good as summoned companions, but unfortunately their output in actual raw damage is not enough to really constitute for a DPS character who builds up to maximize their damage to actually use any of them within single target. Now we had to take this testing a step further. Regis seems actually really good with regards to AoE, because he has this whirlwind of blades. The area of it is quite large and he does it pretty early on in the fight. So we went onto my DPS character and we tested him out in Master of the Hunt. So on my DPS rogue, these are our statistics, and I'm running with 2 of these Warlord inspirations along with 6 of these Indomitable Runestones. We went and ran Master of the Hunt and tested out our Regis companion. We tested him out versus what Xuna would output and also what the Cold Iron Warrior would output. So first of all we have Regis here, and he was outputting just over 5,000 encounter DPS in a full run of Master of the Hunt. You can see his Whirlwind of Blades. His max hit was only 81,000. Now these DPS is scaled down, right? Because Master of the Hunt is scaled content. But so will Xuna be scaled, and so will the Cold Iron Warrior. So we went and also tested out Xuna, and yeah, she does quite a bit more damage at 8.6 thousand encounter DPS, and we also managed to finish the run a bit quicker. And her benefit is mainly due to this bloodbath and being able to hit targets all within a large area. She'll just jump between them. So if they're all spread out, she'll have the ability to make sure to hit them all. Whereas Regis is only able to do this burst area of his Whirlwind of Blades, and he doesn't really care where all of the other targets are. So if he's just by one mob and he's out at the edge of the pack, then he might just do this Whirlwind of Blades and it might only hit a few people, rather than sitting in the middle and hitting all of them. So he's not exactly smart, and that's what really kills his damage. So finally we have the Cold Iron Warrior, which actually did a bit more damage than Regis, purely through being able to do pretty heavy damage with his spinning steel. But we can see there his at-will attack did quite decent as well, just because it's consistent damage. So overall, to conclude, I wouldn't suggest running any of these companions, even in AoE, to output more damage. Now of course their major benefit is that when you slot them actually into these companion equip powers, you can see when just slotting one of them equip powers, it will give normal amount of stats, 3.8% crit chance and 3.8% crit severity, like you have with your Phase Spider, 3.8%, right? But they have the added effect that each equipped companion of the hall will increase this non-combined rating bonus by 25%, so we'll slot in another one. So slotting in Bruenor, we can now see it gives 4.7% awareness and defense, and Drizzt now gives 4.7% crit chance and crit severity. This is because their bonus has been increased by 25% because we have 2 of them slotted. They're increased by 25% for every other companion of the hall, so you'll need 2 of them to actually benefit from this bonus. So let's slot in a third. So here we have Regis, and now the bonus has gone up to 5.6%, and he gives that deflect chance and that deflect severity. So now our Drizzt is giving 5.6% on both those offensive stats. So is Bruenor on his defensive ones. And let's go slot in a fourth. So here we have Wulfgar, and now the bonus has gone up to 6.6% on everybody, because we now have 3 additional ones for each of our companions of the hall. So we'll slot in our final 5th one, and we have Catti-brie, and we can see now the bonus has gone up to 7.5%. Now that's just insane. We have companions slotted in, and each of them gives a total of 15% of these stats, totaling up to 75% bonus stats from just these companions. Now the drawback is that not all of them are offensive stats and not all of them are defensive stats because of Catti-brie. If Catti-brie was 1 offensive and 1 defensive, then that would make it. That would be the best, because then we would have the same amount of offensive stats as if we slotted in just 1 offensive stat companion in each of our slots of the normal type. We would obtain that 37.5% offensive stats, and then you would have the same with defense, 37.5% defensive stats. Unfortunately, with Catti-brie giving move speed and control resistance, we now have it set so that we gain less offensive stats overall and less defensive stats overall. But combined, we're obtaining a lot more statistics. Unfortunately, this hybrid kind of build is not actually necessary right now. We aren't needing the actual defensive stats, potentially in hardcore Voss, but that's about it. There's no other real hard content that you would need to sacrifice damage to actually obtain more defensive stats. So as a DPS character, to obtain the most stat efficiency, you would ideally want to run just Drizzt and Wulfgar for those offensive statistics. You can see just running 2 of them still buffs up those stats to 4.7, and that gives you a total of an additional 3.75% statistics rather than if you were to just run, let's say, other companions which just gave you the 3.8 or the 3.75 on 2 statistics. This buffs it up to 4.7, and thus running these 2 would give you the most stat efficiency. And it's the same with tanks. You would run then your Bruenor and also your Regis for those defensive stats as a tank, and they would give you those extra ones. There's not much point running Catti-brie unless of course you want that hybrid or that movement speed kind of build. As for healers, these just really aren't useful at all. You could run Drizzt, but then that's it. There's no other offensive statistics that are going to aid you in your additional healing. So hopefully this was somewhat helpful to you guys to decide whether you actually want to purchase them. The amount of stats that you gain from them is just crazy. It's double the amount you would normally obtain from companions, but the drawback is, yeah, you're obtaining both offensive and defensive stats, and you can't really choose the offensive stats because it's just going to be crit chance, crit strike, your combat advantage, and your accuracy. No power, and generally people sacrifice accuracy to gain, let's say, more combat advantage or crit. So hopefully I presented this well. If I did, consider leaving the video a like, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing. I'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.